Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel or welcome to my channel. I'm Birds View Politics, and in this video I'm going to be continuing my coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So, it's been 2 weeks since my last video, and since then I had a poll go out to my subscribers, and you all decided that you would rather see me using other maps created by various content creators on YouTube, that you would rather see me use those than the static maps on Wiki Commons, which is already the direction I plan to take my coverage of the war in anyway. So that was great to know that we're in sync like that. And I guess, yeah, so this is my first video with this new format, so comment down below if you like it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, of course. So let's get into it. This is from Vologda Mapping. I highly recommend that you subscribe to him and watch him, and he'll be in the description below his channel. So we had news, this is starting from the 9th of December, that Russia was going to establish defensive lines along the Kharkiv-Luhansk border. So that's right here. This was the big news of the 9th of December, and this basically said that Russia was going to retreat from this tiny area of Kharkiv Oblast that they still held. We also learned that Russia was considering a nuclear strike to potentially knock Ukraine out of the war. I don't believe, at this point at least, that they're going to do that, but it remains a possibility, just like NATO saying there's a possibility of a war between Russia and the West. It's unlikely, but it's still possible. So that's just something to note. I guess the ninth didn't have that much major news other than that Russia was planning to pull back from Kharkiv. Now, this couldn't exactly be said for the 10th because we had some big news. Russia opened up negotiations with Ukraine, but Ukraine said no after Russia used Iranian-made drones to strike Odessa, seen right here, leaving 1.5 million people without electricity and greatly harming Ukraine's ability to ship grain from central Ukraine out towards the nations that need it, particularly in Northern Africa and the Middle East. And this is also Ukraine's last major port city, with all the other port cities they previously controlled, such as Sevastopol, being taken by Russia either in 2014 or in the case of some of the other cities, they have been taken over more recently. We also knew Ukraine was striking Melitopol, an area where partisans controlled some of the area around the city itself. Melitopol is a huge supply area. From Melitopol, of course, you can get to Rostov in the east or Sevastopol in the south. We also had Russian forces enter Bakhmut, and we had Zelensky saying immediately after that that Russia's turned Bakhmut into burned ruins, similar to what he says they did in the south of Mariupol in the beginning of the conflict. And if you just look at it, either from satellite images or any of the images you can see on the web, this is very true. The G7 pledged to send weapons to Ukraine immediately after we found out Russia and Ukraine had failed to come together for a Christmas truce, and news emerged that Ukraine would be planning another offensive, and what I and many others believe will come in the Melitopol area if Ukraine does launch an offensive. And I may be asking, why would they launch an offensive towards a city that is clearly not one of the main areas that Russia plans to control? Of course, Kherson is a bigger prize, I guess you could say. Donetsk is, Luhansk is. So why would they launch an attack towards Melitopol, which is probably the least valuable of any of these four oblasts in terms of resources that it provides, and also in terms of morale boost for the army and for the citizens of the countries? Well, it's because of where they've previously launched attacks. We saw them launch an attack first in September and October in Kharkiv, and that got stuck right here in the Luhansk Kharkiv border, and Russia is continuing to fortify that, as we found out on the 9th. Of course, Ukraine also just launched an offensive to retake Kherson, which succeeded, but the Russians blew up all the bridges to let Ukraine go from the West Bank to the East Bank, so Ukraine is stuck on that front as well. And in southern Donetsk, the only other area that is left for them to attack It's mostly urban areas that are very ill-suited to Ukrainian attempts to use mobile warfare to go around isolated, out-of-supply Russian troops. And so Melitopol is really the last place that they could have gone, and it's also the easiest place for Ukraine to attack, and it provides the additional benefit of if they take the city, they could then turn east towards the most southern areas of Donetsk, like Mariupol, or also towards the west in Kherson. So that was the news from the 12th, and there was only 3 days left. So we had major Russian counterattacks at the Second Battle of Crimea in the east, and you could see the Russians made sizable enough advances. We could even see it on the map. We also had Russian forces continuing to advance in eastern Bakhmut, but perhaps the most important things from an international standpoint were these two, which is first, Belarusian forces performed the snap readiness check, which I don't believe will lead to them joining the conflict or signal that they are about to, but it certainly becomes a possibility if in 2023 Russia is able to successfully take all of one of Donetsk, Zaporizhia, or Kherson Oblast and hold the Luhansk Oblast, you could potentially see Belarus joining the war. On the Western pro-Ukraine side, we found out from the United Kingdom that Royal Marines have been involved in, quote, top secret operations in Ukraine. Now, of course, they didn't tell us what operations these were, but it will be interesting to find out whenever that information is revealed. But that likely will not happen for years, maybe even decades, depending on how long this war or the Russian current administration continues to exist. So now, moving into the 14th, we had continued drone strikes on Kiev, as well as uncovered children's torture chambers in Kherson, and these led to the United States saying that they will provide Ukraine with a Patriot air defense system. Now, something I already made a video on previously was the United States midterms. You may be asking, what in the world do elections in the United States have to do with Ukraine? And there's really one major thing, which is that the House of Representatives, or the lower house in the United States, is now controlled by Republicans, and they tend to be much more moderate on the if they support Ukraine or Russia issue than the Democrats, who are completely behind Ukraine in this case. Now, generally, the more moderate members of both parties are more interventionist and more in favor of sending weapons such as the Patriot air defense system to Ukraine. And so this is probably the last major aid that the House of Representatives will approve for Ukraine, at least until the Republicans take office in January. We'll continue to see from there if the United States will be able to support both economically and militarily the Ukrainian war effort. Now, the Ukrainians continue to attack Donetsk city itself in the largest wave of shelling since 2014, and Kherson lost electricity entirely without Russian shelling, a situation that still continues as I make this video on the 18th. We also had news from the Kremlin that Russia was preparing for another major offensive in early 2023, likely in April or May, and probably, but not entirely, this would be an offensive in the northern areas of Donetsk and the areas of western Luhansk that are not yet taken by Russia. This would be to solidify their control over the eastern section of the front as they prepare for potentially substantial losses in the areas around Melitopol and maybe even Kherson once Ukraine is able to repair those bridges. And so that's it. And I guess, yeah, there's the video. Hopefully you liked it. Comment down below if you'd like this type of formatting for the video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, of course. I know you all rated that. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching, and bye.